Saddle up your horses.
Pitter patter, let's get at her. It is another episode of the Manely Broncos Podcast, and it is the playoff edition episode, if you will. Not the Broncos playoff edition, because we're all sobbing in the corner of the fact that we still have yet to achieve a playoff berth, since of course the glory days of Super Bowl 50. But we'll talk about the playoffs that happened this weekend, and kind of how it correlates a little bit with the Denver Broncos and what they can do for the future. It's not going to be really heavy duty breakdowns, but it'll just be some takes here and there in terms of maybe possibly the future of the team. But everybody that is watching and listening, we want to say thank you. Brandon and I want to say thank you. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, first things first, on MHRT Network. And make sure you can, as much as you can, tune into the Manely Broncos every Wednesday at 7:30. How you doing, Brandon?
I wish we were in the playoffs. Then I'd be doing better, but I'm doing pretty good. Did you watch the Manning cast of the Monday night?
It was pretty. Well, I mean, obviously, I'm repping the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and so of course I watched the Manning cast where. With the Tampa Bay and Philly game where he decided to just roast the Nebraska Cornhuskers, in that Manning cast.
I wasn't even going to bring that up, but yeah, he did. The thing that was funny to me was so for anyone who didn't watch, they had Bruce Arians on, who was the obviously coach in Tampa and coach of the Cardinals. But before that, he was coached in college, but he also was Peyton Manning's quarterback coach, which I actually didn't know. I didn't know that when he was with the Colts. And he basically had this the thing that was funny to me was like, first of all, he's like 72. But he had this whole like interaction with Peyton Manning about the origins of the term or the call or the audible, whatever you want to call it, Omaha. And basically just like this 72-year-old guy is telling Peyton Manning, bro, you didn't invent Omaha, I did. It was so funny. He basically like went into a backstory of how he like what college did he coach at again? Basically there was like it was when he was a coach in college, where he was saying that Omaha was an audible Temple. It was at Temple University, was an audible for punting. And that like he came up with it and not Peyton Manning, and then Peyton Manning kind of like took it coined it and like used it. And obviously their whole like the Manning cast is their whole company, like Omaha Productions. And he's like, you need to give me part of the company. It was so funny. But man, I love playoff football. It's just fun to see things like that. And obviously that was just the Manning cast, but
it kind of brings it out though more.
Yeah,
like when
it
you
does
watch
a little bit, because it's kind of like it's not just a normal game. It's you like talk about like, especially when you have former coaches on, you like talk about like what it means to coach in the playoffs, like how different the playoffs are compared to like the normal season, and how challenging it is, and how like anything can happen, which we learned like to this weekend.
Well, like to a certain extent, it is like the other games that they've done in the past, like on ESPN, right? But like this is just because it's the playoffs and the heightened awareness of the fact it's the playoffs, and so it's one of those things like you're more in tuned as a fan because of that, and especially
like
with
lean forward in the chair meme.
Right, exactly. Get your popcorn ready type of deal. Ian, yeah, I know there's probably a lot of CU fans, or I should say Colorado fans in general, that were tuning in, and I'm sure that really made them smile. But the thing that makes me laugh though is like fake laugh hiding real pain. That's the thing you use all the time, right, Brandon?
Oh yeah,
it was true. Like the thing he said was true.
Nebraska. I did definitely think of you when he brought up the Nebraska stuff. Yeah, you guys are down bad. Anyway,
Yeah. As far as
it was funny.
yeah,
But no, the playoffs, man. We talk about playoffs.
yeah.
It's just a different vibe, and I wish we were in it. But
So, Ian, yeah, we do, and actually, this is over on YouTube. This is over on YouTube, and so you can actually go to the MHRT Network page, click the subscribe button, and you should be able to find us there. We're also on Facebook, over on MH.
YouTube is the best way to watch it.
And as far as the Manely Broncos podcast on Facebook as well, but I as far as a preference, I think it seems like maybe the YouTube is probably the best way to go. And by the way,
Facebook at all costs. Like if you think Twitter is toxic,
and by the way,
football
because we do have Ian in the house, pun intended, right? Even though we have Ian in the house, he's doing really, really fun giveaways on Twitter right now. Or has been, and maybe I just haven't kept up with it, but he's been doing really fun giveaways on Twitter. So if you are a big Bronco fan, make sure you go follow Ian because he's doing really, really fun giveaways. I think he recently did a Justin Simmons card. And so, I mean, like, yeah, he's really got it going as far as, that stuff. So make sure you follow Ian over there on X. What's up, Juana? How you doing? Bronco Danny from New Jersey.
And there's definitely more people tuning in from Twitter than I refuse to call it X than I like normally see. That's it's kind of nice to see. But yeah, I recommend YouTube is the platform of choice.
I will. So before we talk about
you want to watch it,
before we talk about the playoffs really quick, I admittedly will tell you that seeing the X stuff like originally, that I was pretty shocked by because it reminded me of the Periscope days.
Oh yeah, I'm just gonna constantly refer to it as the artist formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, Matty,
what's up?
What are you doing, buddy?
Not a whole lot. I'm doing a whole lot. I've got business school. I'm taking 2 classes at once. I just got back from Oklahoma City for our OKC Topic Thunder fan event. That was pretty dope.
You guys do fan events? That's sick.
Yeah, we had around 100. We sold through the Thunder. We got no proceeds from this, but we sold around 150 tickets. We had like well over 100 people show up to the event before the game as the meet and greet and stuff, and we all got to go on the court and take a group picture, and then we had a half court shot contest for a chance to win courtside tickets. I hit the front left part of the rim.
Oh.
It looked like it was going to go in. It felt really good coming off the hand, and just didn't work. But I put the right amount of ass behind it. It just didn't work out for me. So that was fun, and now I'm like scrambling because I've got like midterms and finals and stuff getting ready to be due. So a lot of fun for me.
I have to talk about this, and I don't remember if this has happened like after the last episode or I've talked about it in the last episode. Did you guys see that meme going around of the guy that LeBron like sat next to some guy courtside, and then his reaction was like, I know him. I know that guy from college. And this my buddy of mine says it to me. He's like, holy shit, Charlie's a meme. And it took me a minute because I haven't seen him in years, but I had to watch it a couple of times. I did some double takes. I was like, you are kidding me. What a small world. But that was so funny. We're never going to let him live that down now. But no, that sounds like a great time.
All right, we have an important question to answer here, and it's for Big Mike. Should he wear a Broncos Cutler or Osweiler jersey to class?
Mm-mm.
I feel like wearing a Brock jersey.
Give me 1 minute.
I feel like wearing a Brock jersey would be appropriate, considering he did have maybe one of the most memorable games in Broncos history.
Yeah, I feel like I'm leaning Osweiler. Okay, my top like vintage underrated Broncos quarterback jersey that you should probably wear most times, if you're not going to wear like the current starting quarterback, is Jake Plummer. Like, I mean, obviously John Elway, Peyton Manning, Jake Plummer. Got to wear Jake. You got to rep Jake the Snake. Between those two options,
you almost would have to go
I
with
think I
Brock.
have to go with Brock Osweiler, even though he betrayed us. Especially if you're a Boston guy, like he did do pretty well against Patriots.
Yeah, and you can rub it in their face a little bit that says, you guys had a chance to win, but nope. Yeah.
Get Brock. What was the there was like a saying when Brock was the quarterback. I don't think it was get Brocked. I don't remember what it was.
Brock and roll, Brock Lobster.
I don't remember exactly what it was, but
I think there was a few because there was Brock Lobster, it was Brock and roll. It was Brock over.
He beat the Patriots, and was that? I don't know if that was that in New England. I don't remember, but
no, I think it was home. I think it was home.
That would have been actually ridiculous if he beat them in New England
in
the Tom Brady era, but that was sick. Brock is a gym leader. Yeah.
This is a somewhat of a bunny trail. Looks like
there's the answer. There's your answer.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah, there's your answer, Big Mike. Matty decided to bring out the Brock Lobster.
I had to go up 2 flights of stairs and into my closet while my wife's trying to sleep. So I did this for you. No belly rubs, but I found the rocket launcher for you.
The rocket launcher? Oh, that's it. That's it from now on. It's a rocket launcher.
Speaking of Brock Osweiler, by the way, this is a little bit of a tangent, but I had no idea he was a color commentator for ESPN doing college football games.
Yeah, it's
until like the last few years, and he's not bad. Like he's actually not bad. So yeah, it's just kind of funny. All right, and speaking of quarterback play and the fact that we have a certain fan, in the building, if you will, of both quarterbacks. Matty, I want you to chime in real quick about how hard it was before the actual beatdown that happened, of how hard it was for you to pick a team to root for because of Baker Mayfield and Jalen Hurts. Or was it actually easy? I gotta know. I gotta know.
Yeah, which one do you like more? Pick your favorites on.
Love Jalen. Let's get this out first and foremost. I've been a fan of his since Bama. I was a huge proponent for him coming to Sooner Nation in the transfer portal. He was highly underappreciated while he was in Norman, and then revisionist history and everybody's acting like they loved him the whole time. Like, no. That wasn't exactly the case. Keep in mind, he came on the heels of Baker Mayfield winning a Heisman, Kyler Murray winning a Heisman. The standard was winning the Heisman at quarterback, and he came up short. He did get to New York, but he didn't win. The thing is, we got boat raced by LSU, and that team would have boat raced kind of, I think, any team in the modern college football era. I say all that to get to this point. He was awesome. For us, we always felt like we had a chance to win, but he wasn't ours per se, right? Even Alabama fans still claim him. Not a lot of Texas Tech fans claim Baker Mayfield. They actually hate him, and he likes it that way. And that's good, because I don't like their face either. Like I'll tell them where they could stuff all those tortillas that they throw on the field. Okay, so I've actually got a couple of Texas Tech fans that I love dearly. So jealous of you getting to meet Baker in Cleveland. They did not deserve him.
Yeah, Matty is super jealous.
I'm jealous. I was a huge fan of Baker coming out of college. I wanted us to draft him.
And everybody else.
Yeah, but okay, I was up on he was my favorite quarterback. So do you guys remember? So that year we were coached the Senior Bowl, and it was announced that we requested that we have him on our team. And I was like, when I heard that news, I was like elated. I was losing my mind. I was like, holy
Yeah.
shit. It's going to be Baker Mayfield. It's Baker time. I was
What?
I was so excited, but whatever.
Yeah, and you were spinning all the different,
flag, man.
and you were spinning all the different possibilities because of the fact that even though they got Case Keenum, right? They got Case Keenum. You were still convincing yourself that, hey, we're still going to draft Baker Mayfield, and it would be appropriate, So I mean, so I mean, you were still kind of spinning it, and of course, the Broncos decided to knife in the heart.
Well, I mean, we didn't have the option because he went number 1 overall, but
yeah,
I was that hurt my soul. No, you're right. Cleveland doesn't deserve it, and it doesn't deserve him. And the funny thing is, like, Baker Mayfield now has more playoff wins than the Browns franchise since 1995. He has 2 and they have 1, and he got them their 1.
and the funniest thing, and this will be the next thing we talk about, the funniest thing was Baker got the playoff win and Cleveland got trounced. So it's kind of fitting how that would end, is that Baker's the one coming out on top and not Cleveland.
The cherry on that is that they got killed by the team that they traded with to get the guy to replace Baker Mayfield. So that's just perfect. Yeah. That's just beautiful. How that worked out. So love Jalen, but Baker Mayfield, like, for most of Sooner Nation, is like up in the levels of the boss in the hierarchy of Sooner legends. And
I also go ahead.
And that, like, that can't be replaced. There was a whole group of people in Oklahoma that did not care about the NFL at all that became lifetime Browns fans overnight when Baker was drafted there.
Yeah.
And then they stuck with him. They rode with him to Carolina. They rode with him to Los Angeles. And now they're like super stoked that he's in Tampa. And it looks like there's like that franchise is rallying around him. I certainly hope that maybe Baker Mayfield isn't wearing the pewter next year, that maybe he's wearing blue and orange. Now, what the predominant color is, I don't know. Apparently, we're getting new jerseys. But I would, if I got to choose between Baker and Jalen, I'm taking Baker.
You had to throw that in there, right? You just had to throw in possibly, us getting Baker Mayfield again.
As long as we're talking about this game.
Plant the flag.
Plant the flag. Oh my god. So as long as we're talking about this game, was what happened surprising to you guys, either of you?
No, I mean, we've basically mentioned about how the Eagles were trending to the fact that they were frauds, right? And I just think that the way things were trending, I guess for me, the only area that was surprising was that it was a beatdown. Like it was a beatdown, if you will. So I just think that from that standpoint, it's surprising. But in terms of the overall game, and just if you're doing a game pick 'em and you're predicting the Buccaneers and the Eagles, well then no, it's not surprising. It's just how it all unfolded, right? And kudos to Todd Bowles. I mean, Todd Bowles had Jalen Hurts in a blender, the entire offense in a blender, the entire night. The only thing that was significant.
I'm gonna say that Brian Johnson had the Eagles offense in a blender.
but I think that there were some at least notable things that were missing there. Obviously, AJ Brown was out. He was missing some key pieces. The offensive line had been shuffled around, right? The offensive line had been shuffled around. So I think that, and then of course, what is it? I believe Ian mentioned it. They weren't tackling. Like it just when you thought that the Broncos defense at times had some really bad tackling, the Eagles, in the most important game of the season, if you will, had maybe one of the worst tackling performances of all time. Now, one of the things that
was some of the worst tackling I've ever seen.
Yeah, except for the fact that number 10 from the University of Nebraska decides to take it 56 yards and just burns everybody for the score. And you know why? Because he woke up pissed off that morning.
Okay, did you guys see that? Did you see that thread?
Being pissed off is better than being pissed on. Just gotta say.
I've seen it since I've been a Huskers fan, so I know all about it, Brandon.
Wait, what are you talking about then?
Me?
No, Cam. So I'm referring to, there was a thread basically that someone found that every time Trey Palmer said he was pissed off or woke up pissed off, that he scored a touchdown in that game. And there's like several tweets with dates of games that he played of him saying like woke up pissed off, whatever. And on every single one of them, he scored a touchdown. So if you follow him on Twitter, and if he says he woke up pissed off, free bet. But no, that
I know all about it.
And this kind of will lead into something I want to talk about with the playoffs in general, but I definitely was not too surprised by what happened. The only thing that surprises me is just like how much that team fell off. I mean, I already said that they were kind of frauds, but to go from being 10-1 to 11,
let alone Super Bowl last year,
6, like they got something wrong. Maybe they're missing Shane Steichen. Brian Johnson is maybe just like a horrible offensive coordinator. I don't know, even though I heard he's going to get head coaching interviews, which that'll be interesting. Nick Sirianni, I don't know if he deserves to be back. Like they got some kind of problem there. But it just goes to show you that like you can have, it's hard to find that consistent formula that consistently wins football games. Like they had, they had won 10 games, right? But then they can't carry that into the postseason. And I think one of the things that I'm looking for just in terms of like what the Broncos are going to do, and there's some of the things that I have thoughts on here when we're looking at the playoff picture as a whole, but like I don't just want to win games, like, and this is obviously, I know something that John Elway has like famously quoted as like to win now and from now on, but it's so hard to find that balance of like, yes, you can win games, but also you can finish games and you can finish the season strong and you can go into the postseason and actually make some waves. And yes, I know obviously the Eagles were in the Super Bowl, but I just feel like that it's interesting to me to see the downfall of the Eagles and then also think about how we're going to build this team to get up to that point. And honestly, the Bills are kind of in the same boat here where, when the Bills beat the Dolphins and took the AFC East, which I predicted the Dolphins are kind of in the same boat here where they cannot beat good teams, but they can beat up on bad teams as evidenced by us. So that's just, it's interesting to see both of those things kind of happen in the playoffs and think about what we're going to do moving forward with this team, because I mean, there's things that we need to work on, but it's a fine line of like, how do we get the team to a point where they're good, but then they're also consistent?
Something catch your eye there, Matty?
They make Fruity Pebbles with marshmallows. Like that's a real thing. That's an actual thing.
Well, I haven't had Fruity Pebbles in like 12 years.
Me neither, but I've been craving them like all week, and I finally
behind you.
I finally decided that I was gonna nut up and go to the store today, in the sub-zero weather or whatever we've been having of late, to get some, because my wife is pregnant. Announcement to the world.
Congratulations, Matty.
Thank you. Expecting our third kid, and I guess I'm having sympathy cravings right alongside her. So I had to get freaking. I just had to get some Fruity Pebbles in my life.
Sympathy cravings, is that like a thing?
Hey, thank you. My love handles say so. So
I'll take those. Yes. Congrats, though.
Yeah. Thank you.
But I will say, as far as the Eagles, I don't know if you fire him this year, because like I kind of I think it's a very different situation between Dallas and Philly. because like Mike McCarthy's got the track record. And I know that, so many people were, really harping on the fact of like, oh, it's such an emotional thing to fire Mike McCarthy. And I've been seeing that. But for Nick Sirianni, I think that's where you can really convince yourself it was emotional, But even that said, you still have to acknowledge what happened, right? You still have to acknowledge what occurred this year. And that was the fact that there were some disappointing losses this year. It wasn't just the fact that they lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but also like the game that's maybe forever on their record, if you will, was the Arizona Cardinals. So I think that if you look at it from Giants too, yeah. I think that if you look at it from just the overall evaluation, I don't know if you fire him this year, but boy, especially with it being Philadelphia, because this was something you and I mentioned with Carl on the show, right? Brandon was like, I do think he's on the hot seat, right? And that they could fire him just from the simple fact that it's Philadelphia. So even if they don't fire him this year, the Philadelphia fan base and just the Philadelphia just state in general and just the team, the expectations now are almost like through the roof, or they're always through the roof. So if he doesn't perform in 2024, they absolutely will have Sirianni on a hot seat, and he may not even finish the rest of the season because of how he ended in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, I saw there's been some reports of like the team reaching out to coaches, like in the NFL, and just like kind of contacting them or setting up interviews with them, and then it was kind of like there was that period of time where it was like, oh, are they gonna fire Nick Sirianni? And then it kind of came out that it's like more like, oh no, it's for his staff, and he's going to meet with Jeffrey Lurie and kind of present a plan for how he's going to fix the team and just all that stuff. But I don't know, that organization, I mean, I just feel like they've had those kind of sky high expectations since they won the Super Bowl against the Patriots with Nick Foles, and just kind of it never really came down from there. And then they seemed to hit on Jalen Hurts, and he kind of had that MVP year. And then they lose Shane Steichen, and then they kind of still seem to have a good season. And then obviously the ending of what just happened. Yeah. And then there's that whole, like, was apparently a rumor of Jason Kelce retiring, which I guess is not actually true. But it's just, I don't know. Yeah, I think they have super sky high expectations, but it is interesting to, again, just to think about how do you get to a point where you can win, like not just win, but win consistently and not fold. I don't think the Chargers have ever gotten to that point as a franchise. Obviously the Eagles are struggling there right now. And I think that kind of informs what we're going to do, which I have some thoughts there. But before we get into that, did you guys have any other thoughts on that game and kind of what just transpired?
I think something that people don't consider enough is the Super Bowl hangover for the team that loses. Like, that's real. And with how hot of a start the Eagles had to the season, it's like people dismiss that as an option. But the injury bug certainly bit them at the end of the season. Jalen Hurts was flipping everyone off involuntarily because he broke his finger, like on his throwing hand. Like, yeah, it's kind of hard to throw the football when your middle finger is jacked, right? And obviously he had other ailments. He wasn't running with the same type of force and aggression that he typically would. The tush push even got stuffed on that 2-point conversion attempt. Like, it just, you saw the writing on the wall, and the team just looked kind of dejected as each week passed. And like the games that they were winning last year, they weren't able to convert those and pay those off on the back half of the season. So the Super Bowl hangover was certainly real for them. I think that the pendulum swing is a little too crazy right now. Like, the world should not be burning. I know it's Philadelphia, and they riot when they lose, and they riot when they win. Like, that's just how that city is. But, like, maybe they need to take a beat. Like maybe it's not as dire as everybody's making it out to be. What I'm shocked with in talking about the game is looking at the NFL draft. What was the big takeaway? They were the Philadelphia Bulldogs because they took all those players from Georgia and that historically great Georgia Bulldogs defense. And yet all those guys seemingly overnight forgotten how to tackle, forgot how to have run fits, and even more importantly, forgot how to cover in the secondary. Like that team was one of the worst.
That's been their weakness all season.
All season, that was one of the worst teams in the league. DVOA against the pass, wide receiver ones, right? Wide receiver twos, the slot. It did not matter if you had a guy who was breathing. He could burn the Eagles. It did not matter. That's crazy, especially when your front seven is as stacked as that, and they're not getting home either. You're just fully exposed. I think it was a perfect storm of a lot of things gone wrong in a tough situation with extremely high expectations. That really, it was Super Bowl or bust at this point. Like, the Eagles were set up from failure essentially since day one. So, like, we take a beat and then watch them be right back in the thick of it next year and watch people say, man, are the Eagles really a Super Bowl contender? I'm not ready to hit the panic button in Philadelphia yet.
Yeah. I mean, I think you do nail it in terms of the Super Bowl hangover. As far as Biggie, as far as NFL teams, they don't practice tackling. They do practice tackling. They absolutely do practice tackling. It's just the techniques by which that NFL coaches do it that just doesn't ring home. I mean, there are some defensive coordinators that just are really, really bad teachers in terms of tackling, right? And so they do teach tackling. It's just a matter of it goes in one ear and out the other sometimes. But it would be funny if all of this is now going to unfold to where the offense, if it is the Georgia Bulldogs, and to talk about the Eagles draft stuff real quick, if it ended up resulting in this, that Brock Bowers ends up falling somehow all the way to the Philadelphia Eagles pick. I know. But like in terms of just the you just know. Well, I think the other part of this too is Howie Roseman's an aggressive GM, right? He's an aggressive GM. So what is the stuff that he's going to be orchestrating in this offseason that's going to be putting him in better position, to be successful? And will he see this season despite, should I say, given everything that happened this year, be very aggressive? I can absolutely see that because of course Howie being so aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to look at. The thing that I kind of want to dig into a little bit here, and obviously I wanted to kind of start with that game because that team both teams in that game kind of go into what I'm about to say in favor of and against it. But the one kind of major takeaway I have when I'm looking at the teams that are in the playoffs for this upcoming divisional round is the amount of these teams that drafted and developed their quarterback versus just happened to pick up some guy off the street. And by that, I mean, it's pretty much just Baker Mayfield and the trade for the trade in hit that like button. Thank you, Pawana Beast. And then the trade for the Lions to get Jared Goff.
Yeah.
In that you look at obviously the Texans who beat Cleveland. I mean, CJ Stroud, you can't tell me that guy is actually a rookie, but they drafted him. Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, they drafted. Obviously, Kansas City drafted Patrick Mahomes. The Bills drafted and developed Josh Allen. We already talked about the one game where it just happens to not be the case, which is the Lions and then the Buccaneers in this upcoming NFC divisional playoff game, where it was a trade and then Baker Mayfield. Well, they're both technically trades. But then Green Bay, who just can't possibly ever miss
or have a bad quarterback.
It's ridiculous. Like I think Packers fans are probably the luckiest fans in the entire sport because they don't know what bad quarterback is. what bad quarterback play is for like 30 years. And then San Francisco, which, I mean, depending on how much credit you want to give to Brock Purdy versus the coaching staff, whatever. But it just kind of underlines only 2 of those teams acquired quarterbacks not from the draft, whereas 6 of them drafted their quarterback. So 2 out of 8 actually hit on someone that was a retread. And I just feel like with the amount of times that we've tried that, the amount of moves we've made, the Russell Wilsons, the Case Keenums, the
Case Keesums,
prime Joe Flacco's,
right?
Who kind of wasn't wrong, but he was 5 years too early.
5 years too late.
To think about. He was too early. 5
Or
years too early.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It just. Do I think we're probably going to have some kind of a cap bridge quarterback this year because of the Russell Wilson thing? Sure. Do I think we're maybe going to try to set up a redshirt season and just eat the whole Russell Wilson deal this year? Maybe. It could happen. That's kind of the only scenario, honestly, where I would kind of accept that, because the one thing that we're learning here is you have to keep swinging on quarterbacks until you hit one, and trying to just get a retread and hope that he will turn into that top 10 guy or top 12 guy that we need in this division to compete is it's the definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And that's just kind of what I take away from the way the playoffs stand right now. And I mean, would I take Baker Mayfield in Denver? Absolutely. Do I think he's going to get out of Tampa? Absolutely not. Would I take Dak in Denver? Absolutely. Do I think he's going to get out of Dallas? No. Like, people throw those names around. I'm like, okay, yes, those are pipe dreams. Would I take them? Sure. But we're talking more about maybe Gardner Minshew. Maybe we're talking about Jimmy Garoppolo. No. We're talking about
maybe a Jarrett Stidham again.
Who's the other one I'm thinking of? Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah,
it's okay, but no. That's my takeaway.
I think should be your number one takeaway. But I think that you hit on it perfectly. There are a lot of avenues the Broncos could go to, and especially now with Sean Payton here, that the Broncos can go to and still be successful. But you hit on another layer to it that's really, really important. The whole Band-Aid idea was something that has been the Broncos' MO the last 8 years. It's never worked. In fact, they've had nothing but Band-Aids without any sort of, replacement, behind them. Like the quarterback of the future. They'd never had that. And so when you continue to do the same thing over and over, and not to quote you, but like when they do the same thing over and over again, the insanity is doing the same things over and over again, expecting a different result. And that's what the Broncos have repeatedly done. And so if you do go out and get a Band-Aid quarterback,
you get it with the tackle position for years too.
But I'm saying if you do if you go out and do that, you are simply putting yourself at the same disadvantage that you have been the last 8 years if there is no future in place, right? So that, I think that's, of course, the number one thing. So you have to keep swinging. And so that's why possibly, maybe this is the best way to look at it, the Broncos are going to find themselves in the Jordan Love situation, right? Where I'll just throw his name out there. I know that he's a trigger name lately on social media and on Twitter X, but JJ McCarthy. Say you draft JJ McCarthy, but you don't start him for a couple of years, right? Or you don't start him for a year, there are a lot of ways to make him successful. You can either let him sit for a year to do the Jordan Love route, or you can just simply give him the reins, trial by fire, give him the ability to start from day one, and then from there you can start to gain. Okay, well, we're getting the chemistry. We're starting to see a lot of this unfold with our young, maybe offensive weapons and what we've been able to do there, or of course, there's that other option, which is go out and trade for a particular quarterback. And if by chance, this is something we did touch on, but if the Broncos do find themselves in the Justin Fields sweepstakes, go have that conversation. Go have that conversation. So I mean, have that conversation. So I think just overall the Broncos will find themselves in a much more favorable quarterback situation than they have been in years past, simply because of Sean Payton at the helm.
Yeah, and I have a different kind of opinion on this, and I want to hear what Matty has to say about this. On kind of what you talked about in terms of drafting a guy, letting him sit. I mean, yeah, Jordan Love, they sat him for several years. They kind of did the same thing with Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes sat behind
Alex Smith.
Good God, I can't think of names. It's hard to remember all those names at once. Behind Alex Smith for like a year or a year and a half. But here's my kind of like not so hot take. I don't think that the quarterbacks became successes because they sat. Like I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be Patrick Mahomes no matter what. I'm pretty sure Jordan Love was probably going to be good no matter what. And they just like happened to sit him for a couple of years because they had Aaron Rodgers still, but they did the work to identify their guy and liked what they saw, and they did the evaluation, and they didn't just take a guy because he was tall.
Agree.
All right. But and like, is there definitely some benefit to saying a guy? Sure. But I don't think you're just going to happen upon a franchise quarterback just because you draft someone and happen to set them. You got to play him. Like, that's kind of my opinion. Can you set them? Sure. But I think you play him unless you have an obvious situation where there's like a clear cut starter ahead of him, which all three of those teams I mentioned had that. Or two teams, whatever. No, three, because Aaron Rodgers was also sitting behind a clear-cut starter. Unless they have a clear-cut starter, just play the guy. Like, he's going to get more valuable reps in an actual game than he is at practice sitting on the bench. Like, that's just the truth. And if he's going to hit, he's going to hit. And if he's not going to hit, he's not going to hit. But you're not going to know unless you see him play in an actual game that means something. You could set him for 2 years and then play him, and he can be horrible, and then you just wasted 2 years. You have to swing again. That's my opinion on it. You can have your own opinion on like this quarterback class. You can say take JJ McCarthy. You can say take Michael Penix. I'm not really even going to make a stand there. I'm going to say if Sean Payton decides that he likes JJ McCarthy and he wants him, go for it. If Sean Payton decides I don't like any of these guys, I'd rather take a tackle. Sure, but I don't like the idea of maybe we're just doing a redshirt year. Maybe we're going to eat the whole Russ cap hit this year. We're going to take a tackle. We're going to just kind of take a year off. Okay, but you have to have a plan. Like, you have to say, okay, well, I have identified these guys that I like in the following class that I'm going to go after. Like, you have to keep swinging on a quarterback until you hit one, because this whole
I agree with that.
We're going to find someone that's a retread and just happen to land a Peyton Manning. That literally doesn't happen. Happened one time. That was us. Like, and obviously there's the Brett Favre, but that's a different situation. It just doesn't. That's almost impossible. Rant over. Go ahead.
It was a great rant, and I know people hate hearing this. I'm going to piggyback on that, or we're going to circle back to whatever other office lingo you want that people hate.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I got to say this, though. One, we're not staying at 12 and taking a quarterback. We're trading up to get our quarterback. He's going to if we draft a quarterback in the first round, then Peyton is going to identify his guy and move up and get him. That's the first thing. Second thing, I'm not exactly sold that we're going to take a quarterback. Peyton didn't come here to be part of a long rebuild. He's since said a few things at the end of the season presser and whatnot about, needing to refurbish talent and all that. Well, guess what? We traded a lot of great capital to get the quarterback that hasn't worked and to get you. So, that explains why. I could potentially see us trading down and gathering assets to try to restock some of our youth, our young talent on rookie scale deals to essentially build out some of our depth. but I don't see Peyton saying this is going to be a redshirt year or a gap year or whatever, right? Like, of course he wouldn't come out and say that, but like I don't see the actions backing that up either. So I say all that to say he's going to go, either we're riding with Russ for the next 2 seasons, and so it would be, hey, we won some games kind of in spite of Russ. He made a few plays. Maybe this is a wake-up call, and we could get him to start attacking the intermediate part of the field with some type of precision and anticipation, which he has not proven he could do over the entirety of his career, or like we're just kind of where we're at. And then next year, draft the quarterback when we have all of those assets. That's potential Koa. But likely, if we do move on from Russ, we're going to go get like a Minshew. I know that Kirk Cousins is going to be number 1 on our list, but he's already said he'd take a hometown discount to stay in Minnesota and throw the best wide receiver in football, which can't blame the guy. The Bears certainly are going to be an option for us one way or another, depending on which option they take. We will take their road, not desire to be traveled. But Peyton didn't come here to be part of a long rebuild. He's going to want somebody at quarterback, if that's Stidham, if he's the only person available who can run his system, then by God, he's going to play Stidham. Right? And that's terrifying to say.
Available.
But he is tired of not being able to run his offense and see his offense go. And that's as frustrating. He would rather us not have as great of an opportunity to win, but actually get to see his system in place so he could better evaluate the players around him. Like, how are you supposed to evaluate wide receivers if they're never getting targeted in the middle of the field? How are you supposed to evaluate running backs and their pass protection if things constantly break down, or your tackles when your quarterback bails out of the pocket too early? Like, there are so many things that we don't get to evaluate because we don't get to see his system. Therefore, he can't go find the players and stock up, our depth chart with his guys that can run his system. That's got to be the most frustrating thing in the world for somebody like him that sees the game on such an intricate level. And it's just like, oh, well, this was coming open, but you decided to bail, a split second too early, and you didn't have to. Like, it's so frustrating for him. And like, he's not going to say it's a gap year. Maybe it's an evaluation year. I think he's going to try to put us in position to compete. I guarantee we're going to have a veteran quarterback on our roster. Yeah. We're not just going to roll with a rookie. But if we do go with a rookie as our Koa, we're trading up for the guy. It's not who can fall to us at 12. Is it McCarthy? Is it Penix? Like, no, we're going to move up and go get our guy. We're going to ensure that we get our guy.
Would you trade Surtain to move up?
I would 100% trade Surtain to move up, and that's nothing against him as a player. That's nothing. I wouldn't trade my grandma to move up, but like maybe she could cook a few meals for someone for a little bit. Like there's not anyone untouchable on this roster to fix the quarterback position, in my opinion.
Let me ask you this double question, and Cameron's probably going to kick me out of this meeting. Let's say that we have let's say that they keep Justin Fields. We can trade up to 1.
Okay.
Bears. We can trade up
Bears
to 1.
keep Fields. We can trade up to 1.
It's going to take a lot of picks. It's also going to take Justin Simmons and Pat Surtain.
What does a lot of picks mean?
And maybe even Garrett Bowles. I don't know, at least probably, let's say those 3 players and 2 firsts.
I think I think 3 players is way too excessive.
That's excessive.
Well, the reason I say those 3 players is like Garrett Bowles is not young.
But even then, 3 players is too excessive.
Okay, take Garrett Bowles out of it. The original conversation was you get up to 1, ignore the picks. Obviously, there's going to be picks involved. You get up to 1, you have to trade both Pat Surtain and Justin Simmons. You doing it?
I mean, I'd strongly consider it. And the reason why, one, like, Surtain's going to get the bag soon. We're not in a position to be able to utilize him, right? Like it just kind of is what it is. Simmons is a very expensive player. I don't want to get rid of these guys. Please don't make it seem like I'm casting them out. But in the NFL, if you don't have
question.
If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance.
Yeah.
Period. Dot. And so it doesn't matter how stacked you are elsewhere. You don't have a chance in today's NFL to win unless you have a quarterback. And for all the Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, like he's playing that offense to a T in a way that challenges the entirety of the field. So like that's the perfect person to quarterback a Shanahan type of offense. So yes, they have a quarterback, even though he was Mr. Irrelevant. Like it's just look at the guys that are still playing right now.
Well, especially if you have Jim Harbaugh and or Bill Belichick in division, or both, God forbid, in the division.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think
I don't. But like my question stands.
My point, but the point though is just like Bill Belichick is, he's not going to go to the Raiders. Harbaugh's not going to go to the Raiders.
It was just hypothetical. But would you take that trade, Cameron? Don't avoid the question.
No, you guys swing for a quarterback.
So you would take that trade.
But you guys swing for a quarterback.
I'm not judging you. I'm just saying you would trade Justin Simmons and Pat Surtain.
I've done a complete 180. Matty can back me up on this though. I've done a complete 180 on how I've completely viewed the whole situation. Yeah. If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a foundation at all. And the quickest thing for you to jumpstart your foundation is to land on the quarterback. Just simply put, look at Houston. Like if you look at Houston, I mean, they did something that was uncanny. And I think that we do see something that's going to be a precedent for teams that are in the top 5 and have draft capital, and that is trade back into the top 5 and take another player within the top 5. I think you'll see more teams do that with the amount of success that Houston did. And I think that if you can but it's all precedent on teams that are able to pull it off. If you can be able to land your quarterback and still take a player within the top 25 because of the capital you have, I mean, you have to consider it. I mean, you keep swinging on a quarterback. And that's one of the reasons why I say the Broncos are this offseason going to find themselves in a very curious situation because they have a lot of options on the table. So much so that the quarterback they still sign in the offseason is not going to take them away from taking a quarterback high. Or even with their 12th overall pick, it's not going to take them at all from that because Sean Payton has a plan. He absolutely has a plan.
Yeah, Ian, Foles had an incredible run in the playoffs. I got to say that. Broncos won a Super Bowl with a shell of a Peyton Manning. I agree with that. I am wearing the Brock Osweiler jersey to celebrate what he did for that season too. But Peyton Manning did make the clutch plays when we needed him in the playoffs too. So he didn't really take a lot with that historically great defense. So I get it. There are certainly situations where quarterbacks rise to the top, but that's not sustainable. That's not bankable. You can't really bet on that. Like you can't bet on Trent Dilfer. You can't bet on Brad Johnson, right? Like those guys do win Super Bowls with incredible supporting casts. Mm-hmm. But like a lot of things have to fall in place. And by the way, Peyton Manning 2 years prior to that, like set records. So that still stand to this day, even with 17 game schedule. So,
let me put it this way with that conversation. The amount of work you have to put in on the entire defensive side of the ball with not even just 11 starters, but that whole bench unit too, and depth and everything to get the defense to a point where you even have a chance to go to the Super Bowl with a, let's just say, average quarterback, which I don't even know if we have that right now. The amount of work it takes to get a defense to that point compared to the amount of benefit you can get if you hit on a quarterback one time, it's like not even close.
So we'll have this conversation. We maybe delve a little bit too much, obviously, with the quarterback discussion, but that is the number one takeaway as far as the playoff weekend was the quarterback play. Let's continue that a little bit further and talk about some more of those other games. The Detroit Lions, the Matt Stafford, coming home to Detroit. I think that if you look at it from just that particular game, I'm curious to see what Sean Payton certainly meant when he said that in his presser about how, or even in his comment about how he feels the Broncos are the Detroit Lions, right? Or that's kind of what he saw, which to preface the tweet, that's why I said what I said a few days ago, which was, if Sean Payton feels like, the 2023 Lions or the 2023 Broncos or the 2022 Lions, and what will the 2024 Denver Broncos be? Like, that's the $1 million question, right? That's the $1 million question. And so we're fixing to find out. But the Lions, man, they are a well-oiled machine. We need to get.
I hope the Lions win the Super Bowl.
We need to give Aaron Glenn a lot of credit for the red zone defense he did against the Rams in that playoff game, because that was something else. I mean, I think that if you look at it from what he was able to do, I don't know if the Lions win that game. Obviously, if the Rams are even just a little bit more successful, of course, in the red zone, right? Because they had a lot of opportunities in the red zone, and they couldn't even capitalize.
That was Kyren Williams had 13 for 61, and that was a down game for Kyren Williams. Like, if Kyren Williams was running like he was running for the majority of the regular season, they probably win that game. Like, that Lions team, it's kind of interesting because going into the beginning of the year, that was kind of their strength, was like stopping the run, and then they kind of just like imploded and like you could run against them, and then they kind of turned it back around and fixed it, and then now you can't run against them anymore. It's kind of crazy to see that happen in this course of a year. So yeah, like, props to the Lions, man. I hope they win it all.
Matty?
I mean, we have Goff against Baker, number 1 overall versus number 1 overall. We have Jordan Love against Brock Purdy. Like,
who had
Love
that?
Is
who had that on
their bingo card?
Yeah.
So like, first round pick, and then the guy that's been like playing at an MVP type of level. Like him, hate him, whatever, like, he's in the conversation. So give Purdy his flowers. Please don't hate me for saying that, Mike. And then flip the script. Lamar Jackson, first round pick.
Josh Allen, possibly
MVP, about to be MVP again. Going against maybe the best young quarterback in football in CJ Stroud, and then flip it, and we've got Mahomes and Josh Allen, 2 first-round picks that are franchise guys. Like, tell me a team that's still playing right now that doesn't have a quarterback that you would be like, I'd be happy with any of those guys in Broncos country, right? If we had any of those guys right now, we'd be, well, maybe Purdy, because we got to put the system around him, but like, daggum, like, all those guys are great.
Well, it's funny because if Sean Payton says that
Ian.
If he feels like the Lions or the Broncos are emulating the Lions, does that mean he's going to be searching for a Jared Goff? Because you put Jared Goff in the system that Sean Payton wants to run, I would imagine, he very well could be putting up the exact same type of numbers that he is with Detroit. Now, granted, Detroit has done a fantastic job building around Jared Goff and just that offense, and of course, Ben Johnson being just a very, very smart mind. That if you're the Los Angeles Chargers, you're in a win-win proposition. If you don't get Jim Harbaugh, well, hey, I'll go get Bobby Slowick out there from from Houston, or possibly even getting Ben Johnson. So I just think they're like the Jared Goff, though. I mean, to circle back on Goff, we need to give him some credit. We really do need to give him some credit, because, I mean, that game that he played against the Los Angeles Rams, was
Are you
absolutely.
sure about that?
Yeah, he was phenomenal. He was on his game the entire night. I mean, especially when you think about the call that sealed the victory. I don't think Dan Campbell or even Ben Johnson make that call unless you're very comfortable with who you have at quarterback. And he delivered.
I gotta say this. You mentioned it. He's the Colorado Rockies of
I mean,
at the quarterback position, and it's not just home and away splits; it's indoor outdoor splits for Goff. He's had the benefit of playing a lot of his career in a dome, so it's going to be interesting if they win this week and they have to go to San Francisco, what that's going to look like, or Santa Clara, whatever you want to call them, like to play the 49ers on the road outside. Beating Goff is that. I thought we were going to be beating Goff too, to celebrate the holidays, and we certainly were not beating Goff. So, that's just the way it went. The first round quarterback thing matters, right? But I mean, you guys didn't really touch on it. Do we stay at 12 and draft a quarterback, or do you think that we target a guy and move up?
I was going to kind of save that conversation for a little bit later because, we're going to be having that conversation a lot in the offseason.
We're going to have that conversation for the next 3 months.
Yeah. Because
what else are we going to do?
Right. But I mean, and then if you look at it just from the standpoint now of the other games, right? We mentioned the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills were a team that, let's be honest, the Broncos beat the Buffalo Bills, and it's like a light bulb went on, and we gave them a lot of crap, right? We gave them a lot of crap from the standpoint of, is Sean McDermott a John Fox type head coach to where, even if he succeeds, the Bills are going to find themselves in a situation where had they lost that game to the Pittsburgh Steelers, or lost a playoff game, maybe they let go of him and they aggressively pursue a guy, like a Bill Belichick, a Pete Carroll, any of these, upper echelon coaches, or even a young mind to be with Josh Allen for a fair amount, right? So I think that, the Bills, with where they're at, they're in a really incredible spot because they're a tough team to beat now, right? And Houston, with the statement that they made against the Cleveland Browns, for a young team to do what they did, that was a statement by DeMeco Ryans in that young playoff game, in CJ Stroud's first playoff game, and DeMeco Ryans' first playoff game as a head coach. I mean, like I think that just in general that there are some really good divisional round games this weekend, and like I think there's a real possibility. We didn't get a chance to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs game just yet, but I think that still there is a real possibility that the Buffalo Bills beat the Kansas City Chiefs by 2 scores or more.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd say 2 scores, but I do think that they win that game. So here's the funny thing that it took me a little bit to kind of realize. Oh, nice. So I feel like the Broncos were kind of just the, like, whatever the opposite team is. Like, I don't know how to describe that, but Miami absolutely destroys us, and then going forward, they kind of suck and can't be good teams. We beat the Packers and go on that run, and after we beat the Packers turn it around, become an incredible team. Jordan Love proves that he's actually a franchise quarterback, and then they just trounce the Cowboys. We beat the Bills pretty handedly, and then the Bills turn around and are like, all right, time to lean forward in our chairs a little bit here. And then the Bills go on a huge run, end up as the number 2 seed in the AFC.
Did we beat the Bills handily though?
Well, it felt like it was. Tell me I'm wrong. You watched that game, it did not feel like it was close, even if it looked close. But that was kind of insane. Go ahead.
Are we the football version of Good Luck Chuck in a way?
That's it. That's the one.
Like it's so weird how you're right. It's like teams lose to us and they're like, oh, we lost to them. We got to correct some stuff. And then they correct it. And then they go on a huge run. Like, yeah, only able to beat the good teams. It's unreal.
That's
the terrible teams that we lost to.
If you were to write the Broncos season in one sentence, that's it. Like
to get swept by the Raiders.
That's one of the craziest sentences I would have ever read.
Lose to the Commanders and the Jets and
Justin
the
Fields,
Patriots.
I mean, even though he did look good for the rest of the year, like that first game against us, he looked like a friggin' Hall of Famer.
Which, by the way, again, not to circle on the quarterback discussion, you kind of are having maybe a Justin Fields conversation because of how he played against you. You know, granted, you beat him, but like maybe you are having a conversation because of how he played against you, you know, down there in the Windy City. Anyway, but I'll tell you, as far as a AFC championship that I think probably me and everybody and their mother wants, give me the Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson AFC championship. Give me that, because I want to see Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, possibly two of the newer faces, do it the way that the NFL is molding towards, right? The dual threat quarterbacks, right? Not the prototypical, you know, necessarily CJ Stroud's, although it's really nice seeing CJ Stroud, you know, basically almost like revert back in a way. It'd be like a prototypical, you know, like passer, and guys like obviously Jared Goff is in that as well. But like as far as a young quarterback and doing it at a very high level, right? So I think that, you know, that AFC championship is going to be a lot of fun. Lamar and, you know, and Josh Allen in that particular game, I'm curious to see what that could possibly, you know, do. So I do actually have the Buffalo Bills and the Ravens in that AFC championship. Yeah, that's truly the one that I'm going to be most looking forward to as far as that AFC championship weekend, if that ever comes to fruition.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, that is kind of something that I thought about a little bit when we were having that, how the Broncos won Super Bowl 50 with Peyton Manning that goes to Peyton Manning. I mean, one, he was still Peyton Manning. And yeah, that defense was insane. And I mean, there's definitely some counter argument to what I'm about to say, but you know what didn't exist then? Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, CJ Stroud in this division now, Lamar Jackson, and that's just in this division.
Your conference.
Jordan Love, who's now good.
You're going to get paid now.
There's a guy by the name of Joe Burrow that people have forgotten about.
I'm not gonna lie, I forgot about him because he was injured. It's insane how stacked this conference is. And obviously it was kind of stacked before. I mean, you still had Tom Brady, but it just feels like it's a different level.
That's without knowing what Anthony Richardson's going to be. People still like Justin Herbert. Oh
my God, I didn't even say Justin Herbert, and that's in the it's insane. It's insane.
That's a lot. There's a crap ton of talent. And yeah, Ian, go ahead and claim him. We know Nebraska can't. Sorry, that was for you, Cam. It's just so many quarterbacks, right? So your margin for error, if you do not have a quarterback, is razor thin. You have to pretty much thread the needle with a perfect defense, have health, have the right system, run the ball, and all of the things that we did to win games that was boring and not sustainable. That's what we have to do and get hot. And if you have a quarterback, you have a margin of error then who can cover up deficiencies and make plays off script and, really be able to maximize the players around them. All those quarterbacks that we mentioned that are playing still do that. They make the players around them better. And we don't have that guy right now.
Well, I'm just fascinated by this new age, if you will, of quarterbacks, and the fact that we may very well get an AFC championship of Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. I think it would be very fun to possibly get some of the, just the coaches of DeMeco Ryans, in there. Boy, I tell you, he is something else, isn't he? Like D'Amico Ryans and just the overall pairing with CJ Stroud. So I think it's certainly possible that they can, surprise everybody and, do the unthinkable and, even make it to the AFC Championship themselves. But I just it would be really curious. I'm not really saying that, everything that has transpired with the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud. I'm more curious about what's going to happen once Bobby Slowick leaves, right? Because we saw with Jalen Hurts when Shane Steichen left, right? We mentioned that earlier.
But I don't think CJ Stroud is going to fall off a cliff. I mean, he's too.
But it's a fair argument.
It is a fair argument, though.
It's a fair argument to be made, though.
Speaking of Bobby Slowick, and Cam and I had this realization last night. Matty, I don't know if you know this. Did you know Bobby Slowick was also on that Washington staff with Shanahan, LaFleur, McVay, Bobby Slowick? It's insane.
Abraham, Moses, like everybody was on that staff. It was ridiculous. They were stacked to the gills. Like
it's insane. And then also, I mean, he's not a head coach yet, but he's getting some interviews. Raheem Morris was on that staff.
All those guys, all that talent was on that staff, and now the Commanders are looking for a coach. Like,
I mean, the Browns had Bill Belichick and Nick Saban at the same time. So.
Yeah.
I mean, Dan Quinn had Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, and there was another guy in there as well that I'm of course, maybe Matt or Sean McVay was in there, right? Maybe Sean McVay was a part of that staff. I can't remember, but it was a really loaded. It was a really loaded staff.
You guys see the interaction that I think it was. I don't remember what coach it was with. I think it wasn't Mike Shanahan. I don't remember who it was, but someone was talking to RG3 on Twitter. And basically like he was saying like, oh, you told me you didn't know how to coach a player who could throw and run like me. And then the coach quote tweeted him and was like, you're right. That team didn't have enough coaching talent or something. I don't remember who it was, but it was just so funny.
Yeah. Are you talking about John Gruden's brother?
Is that who that was?
I can't believe that.
Was it Jay Gruden that did that? Yeah, that might have been him.
I can't believe that Twitter's an actual place that we get to go watch all these people just like throw shade at each other.
It was Jay Gruden.
It's just so great.
I actually love the fact that people on Twitter can go out and check out the Manely Broncos podcast, now and feel free to chime in on the show. So I'm definitely happy about that because Matty, it brings us back to the Periscope days, right? Like as far as
sure,
like the Manely Broncos from the ground up. I will say the Nebraska, they do claim Roger Craig, but we also do claim the other, best running backs from that system, if you will, which would be Mike Rozier and Johnny Rodgers, of course, and
Tom Rathman,
many other players, of course, in that system. So who's going to the championship? I feel like the hardest.
I feel like, do you want to go? You just want to go game by game and do predictions?
Well, I feel like the hardest prediction would possibly be the Ravens and Buffalo. Maybe I don't know. But the San Francisco and the Packers one is just fascinating.
That's gotta be a game, man.
Because I don't know how it started, but I saw it on Twitter and I don't know if it's true, but that Matt LaFleur and Kyle Shanahan don't like each other. I don't know if that's true or not. So I'm really curious to see as far as the AFC Championship and the NFC Championship, how it's all going to play out. But I think everybody is certainly wanting a Lions and 49ers NFC Championship game.
Debo's going to unlock his inner T.O. against the Packers. So they're gonna win. And then Lions are at home. They're tough. I ride with Baker. I love Baker. They're just not gonna have enough.
What are you gonna do if he goes to the NFC Championship game?
I know what he's not gonna do, and he's not gonna be playing in Denver next year if he goes to the NFC Championship game. Like,
I mean, he's not gonna. He won't be in Denver at all.
I mean, but there's zero chance. There's
no.
Jim Carrey isn't even like walking through that door. If that happens, right?
He's also 62. Jim Carrey's like 62.
Well,
unless John Elway is still running the building, then Jim Carrey would never be our franchise quarterback.
No, I'm saying. So you're saying there's a chance? Like, no, that guy's not walking in.
Do we want to
Baker's done.
Let's just do game predictions at the bracket for this week.
Oh,
okay. So Lions Bucks.
That's actually, I feel like that's going to be actually a good game. I think I have to take the Lions. Like I do, but I think the Buccaneers are going to hang in this one. I think Mike Evans is going to go off again. I think Baker Mayfield's going to show that the Browns made a mistake again, and I do think the Lions are going to win, but I actually think it's going to be a good game.
I wish that we could get the old Lions jerseys, like the Barry Sanders Lions jerseys, and then the creamsicle Bucks. Like, can we just put that for a playoff game, please? Because that'd be the most beautiful playoff game I've ever seen with both of those jerseys. But yeah, Lions win at home.
That'd be sweet.
So again, like, I take Pro Football Focus, whatever it is that you will, but they do like team grades, right? They do team grades. They have the 49ers as, the best overall grade, right? Then you have the Dolphins, the Ravens, the Cowboys, the Lions, the Bills, the Eagles, and the Texans. The Chiefs are 85 and the Rams are 85 as far as a team grade. The Buccaneers, as crazy as this sounds, and they actually made the playoffs, they are the 22nd team grade in Pro Football Focus. They have a 77 team grade, and they're in the playoffs. So, I mean, like, I think that it just goes to show you how well, Baker Mayfield's been playing and how well just the coaching staff has been, this year and how well they've been able to operate. So I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if, the Buccaneers do something. I still am going to go ahead and predict the Lions. Obviously I will, say that the San Francisco 49ers will beat the Green Bay Packers, led by none other than a super fan, guys. Did you know that? Can you imagine being a super fan and intercepting a pass in one game? Congratulations to Jair Alexander for being a fan and intercepting a pass off of Dak Prescott. So I think you're going to see an NFC Championship game of the Lions and the 49ers, which would be incredible. Actually, if this does come to fruition, that will be a round of Final Four that I will be super, super excited about, because I do have Buffalo beating Kansas City, and then I do have the Ravens beating the Houston Texans. So talk about a round of the Final Four that I would be super excited about between the Bills and the Ravens and the Lions and the Niners.
Yeah, if we're talking about Packers, San Francisco, I can't in good conscience not pick the 49ers, especially since Christian McCaffrey just breathes. But I do think that's going to also be an interesting game.
Oh, of course.
Jordan Love is insane.
Of course, Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel was on the was on the Washington staff, and Mike McDaniel was also on that Atlanta staff. That was the guy I was missing.
Yep. Yeah, I do have to take the 49ers there. In terms of Texans, Baltimore, honestly, I think these are all going to be really good games. I think that one's Baltimore. So the NFC side, Lions, San Francisco, and then Baltimore. And I do think the Bills beat the Chiefs. So, and I believe it's in.
It's in Buffalo. It's
Buffalo?
the first.
Yeah.
How about this statistic?
It's the first playoff road game in Patrick Mahomes' career.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
I do think that it's the Bills win. So I think it's going to be 49ers, Lions, Ravens, Bills. That'll be fun.
Who's your final four?
Matty.
It's going to be Lions at 49ers, and it's going to be Chiefs at Ravens.
You're good, Ian. I think that's the beauty of comments, right? Comments are always rolling in. You're good. Yeah, so no, you are 100% good. And I think congratulations to Matty for answering this. But Broncos fan 23, the PO in our handle is predominantly orange. Brandon doesn't write for predominantly orange, but he has PO in his username.
He's going to change it.
And he's always pissed off, so there's that.
Yeah.
Just like Trey Palmer.
It's just pissed off now.
So I think that so let me phrase this as we're getting ready to wind down here. Houston can upset the Baltimore Ravens and the Green Bay Packers can upset the San Francisco 49ers if.
Damn, that's hard. I think I'm going to have to start on the Green Bay side. Go ahead, Matty.
No, go ahead. I want to hear it.
I think Green Bay can win if Jordan Love continues to do what he's kind of been doing, and we see a little bit of the Brock Purdy slump that we saw a little bit, specifically against the Ravens, where he threw 4 picks. And he kind of just had he had a string of games there in the middle of the year where he just kind of like, he wasn't great. He wasn't terrible. If he's kind of in that middling performance and they're able to kind of get Jordan Love going, they're able to maybe get the running game going a little bit. Obviously, I know San Francisco is going to have like a lot of their weapons back. But I think the Green Bay defense is actually kind of good. And if they can make Brock Purdy sweat, they can make Brock Purdy get out of sync with his receivers and throw off his timing a little bit. And he makes some mistakes and makes some turnovers. I think the Packers could win.
Is this Carter? As in Carter from LTB? I'm just spitballing here. What about you, Matty?
I mean, if they have their run fits on point, their secondary is getting better. If they could throw off timing, that's by jamming receivers and being able to get away with some man coverage, overload the box, and get pressure on Purdy, they could get turnovers. A lot of that's a lot of ifs because they have so many guys that can kill you in one-on-one.
They're gonna have to stop Christian McCaffrey too. I forgot to mention that.
Right. That's why I led with run fits. That's why you got to have a stacked box and you got to be able to get after it, right? They're going to have to win the turnover battle by at least 2 in order to have a chance. Jordan Love's going to have to play clean game. Aaron Jones is going to have to establish himself in the run, just like he did against Dallas. Maybe not to the tune of 3 touchdowns, but certainly is going to have to 4.5 at least yards per carry average to be able to hold them accountable. And then one receiver is going to have to go off, at least, one guy is going to have to go off for over 150 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. Like, they're going to have explosive plays in order for them to close the gap in their talent deficiency, because San Francisco is arguably the deepest team in the league and arguably the most talented team, on the ones across the board as well. So, Like, you got to win turnover battle, got to have explosive plays, got to still be able to establish the run. Can't get one-dimensional, because if you get one-dimensional, then the 49ers tee off on you, and Love's not going to be able to have a clean game. And then Purdy, he's awesome when he's on, and he has a couple of stinkers. Mm-hmm. The formula to make him have stinkers is get after him, don't let them lead on the run, and force him to throw under pressure. And that's pretty much what you're going to have to do. It's tough. It's going to be tough sledding for the Packers.
Yeah, not to piggyback, since that's a famous phrase tonight. Not to piggyback off of what you guys have been saying, but I mean, you got to also stay true to the running game too. You got to stay true to the running game. If you're the Packers, Aaron Jones, it seems like he's got fresh legs, right? He's been missing, for a period of the season, right near the end of the season. And now he's got fresh legs because of the fact that he's been well rested, since his injury, and he's like a whole new back. And I think when he is healthy, he's a top 5, top 6, 7 back in the NFL. I mean, he's a very, very efficient back, and not to compare, with what has been with Aaron Rodgers, with Green Bay Packers, but one of the things that's been so successful for the Packers to advance in the playoffs, it's always been a successful running game. So I think that if the Packers can have that kind of successful running game with a guy like an Aaron Jones, I think that that'll obviously alleviate a lot of the pressure. And I'm very curious to see the chess match, between Kyle Shanahan and Matt LaFleur. I mean, they know each other very well. So what is the chess game going to be between both of those? I mean, so I'm really curious, because they do know each other, a fair amount, like, the ins and outs, if you will, for one another, the tendencies. And so I'm curious to see what that'll entail. And then as far as the Houston game, I don't want to get too excited or too wrapped up into the fact about, that they put up 45 points up on the Cleveland Browns, and then being the number one defense, of course, or one of the top defenses in football. But I think it really was quite a statement for them, whether or not they beat the Baltimore Ravens or not. But the fact that they were able to do that against that kind of defense in the playoffs is going to give them a lot of confidence heading into this game. And not to sound like I'm going to give athlete speak here. But if you're the Houston Texans and you're CJ Stroud, you've got to play exactly the way that you have, in weeks prior. And one of the things, and I think it was the broadcast that actually mentioned this, but it goes without saying too, CJ Stroud, this dates back even to his days in college. CJ Stroud has played his best ball either in bowl games or even in the college football playoff. In the most meaningful of games, CJ Stroud has been that dude during those games. And if he can be that again against a Baltimore Ravens team, which, let's be honest, it's also kind of fitting, by the way, with the fact that Todd Monken is on the other side, that he played Georgia, right? And that was the game that really put him in that conversation of the number one overall pick. So maybe there's some extra incentive from his standpoint of like, oh, here's Todd Monken from Georgia. Now let's see if I can go out and actually, follow through with it on the biggest stage. So I think that if he can perform the way that he's capable, and Nico Collins, can do what he's been able to do, I think the important thing for Houston is they need contribution from someone else other than Nico Collins, right? Brevin Jordan seems to be a really sneaky weapon too for the Houston Texans. The running game, I think that I think the other factor, of course, is Devin Singletary. Damian Pierce running game, having a consistent running game, and the defense. The defense has to be able to continue, what they've been able to do, of course, and piggyback off those successful outings that they've had, especially with the Cleveland Browns game.
Wow, that was on point. I don't even know what to add to that. But no, I think that point about Brevin Jordan, yeah, he's a pretty underrated weapon for them that I haven't really seen mentioned much this year. He also kind of, I think, had a fairly decent game against us. And then actually Dalton Schultz as well, who was originally like kind of their main go-to tight end, and then he kind of like fell off a little bit, and Brevin Jordan stepped up more. So they have two like legit guys at tight end to help kind of take some of the pressure away from Nico Collins, which I think will help. I forgot that John Mechie is on the Texans.
Noel Brown.
So did they. They also forgot that he's on the Texans.
Yeah, I actually kind of also forgot that Bobby Trees, Robert Woods, is there as well. But yeah, it'll be a good game for sure. I mean, I think it's going to be tough. Like just Baltimore, it's hard to run on them. And Devin Singletary did kind of have like a low key career resurgence in Houston because of like he was in Buffalo before and he was kind of and then he sort of went to Houston and became good again. But yeah, I mean, it'll be a good game. It kind of sucks that they lost Tank Dell. I mean, I think if they still have Tank Dell, that gives them another super deep weapon. But just CJ Stroud, the thing is, just CJ Stroud is so good. This is going to be a good game. You can like CJ Stroud is the least rookie I've maybe ever seen.
I don't want to say Baltimore is sneaky on upset watch, but I would not be surprised one bit if it's, a close game. And I actually do think it's a close game. But I would not be surprised if Houston pulls it off. I really won't, because of the way that the Ryans has that team right now. Like, Matty, do you have any thoughts?
I have lots of thoughts, but the thing is, my question, and I might have missed it, is Andrews playing?
He was a full participant in practice today, and I don't know, but like I think he is trending towards playing.
They activated him too, yeah.
And Zay Flowers is questionable, but he's probably playing, right?
Yeah. Zay Flowers today was also a full participant in practice.
Yeah.
The guys who didn't practice today, that of note, Jadeveon Clowney, but that's just an illness, so we'll see. Marlon Humphrey did not practice yesterday or today.
So, yeah, like the thing is, if Lamar's got targets to throw to that aren't like Nelson Aguilar in big games, like it's going to be a problem. He's getting his horse back, his main guy in Andrews. They've had extra time to get healthy here. It's gonna be tough sledding for Houston to be able to keep up, and that's playing into the weakness of the Texans' defense is in that secondary. And Gus Bus, like they can still establish the run as they need. Lamar Jackson is on a different level in games that matter. Like I just waxed poetic about how awesome the 49ers are. The Ravens boat raced them. Like it wasn't even close.
Yeah.
I just got to take. I mean, it's a season for Harbaughs to be successful in the postseason. I'm not betting against Jim at all, or John, excuse me, at all here. However, how do they win? Stroud throws for 450 and 4 touchdowns, and they just say, we're not going to get cute and try to run the football. We're just going to beat you with our best player. And
which as crazy as it sounds, is doable with the way that
and Nico Collins gets 200 yards receiving. Like he just pretends he's playing the Broncos again, and like goes nuts. So there is a path. I think their path for success is less than what Green Bay's is, and it's pretty dire for Green Bay, but it's there. Outside of maybe, maybe that player from the Lions going to play for the Ravens and taking or going to play for the Texans and taking out Lamar Jackson's knee. Like outside of that, like I don't know. I don't see a path. And I love Ryans. I love what they've done. I think Stroud's a stud. The Ravens are that team. I predicted them to be the 1 seed before the season started for a reason.
Got to stick
I
to your
just
gun.
thought the only team that was going to dismantle them was Burrow led, because I thought they would get a slow start. They did. Then I thought they'd hit a high note. They did, and then Burrow got hurt, and that was all she wrote. But nobody else is going to be able to. And Ravens are going to win next week too. So chalk up 2 wins for the Ravens.
Well, you got to stick to your prediction too. With that being said, we just want to say thank you guys so much for hopping on with another episode of the Manely Broncos podcast. We had a lot of great commentary. We want to say thank you to every single person, that commented. John Cape, Wanna Beast, was in here. Some guy named Matty Mulls was chiming in the chat earlier. Big Mike was in, of course, he was the reason why Matty is wearing the Brock Osweiler jersey. Biggie Bronco, of course. Ty, for a little bit of a period, was in here. Carter Dillon, a representative of the Let's Talk Broncos podcast, ladies and gentlemen. So give him a follow. Was in the house, and none other than Ian Hose, right? Ian Hose. And again, I said it earlier. Go follow him on Twitter. He's got some giveaways that he's been doing out there on Twitter. He's a fantastic follow. I'm not sure what he's got cooking right now. I think the most recent one that I know is that he did a Justin Simmons giveaway. But I would be sure to follow him because he's got those great giveaways going on with his Twitter handle. Of course, he's a Broncos fan, of course. So he's a really good follow. Make sure you follow Brandon, Matty, and myself over on social media as well. Matty Mulls Pod, at Matty Mulls Pod, Brandon Miller, at Brandon Miller PO, and at Cameron Parker PO. And as was pointed out earlier, it is PO because of predominantly orange. So thank you guys again for hopping on. And of course, none other than the legend himself, Michael Carmelini, the guy who was the one who voted us the number 1 podcast, of course, in all of the land. So thank you to Michael for chiming in.
Shouts out everyone who said this.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, he did. He's had the best for last.
That's the whole point. You save the best for last.
Like Shania Twain, you're still the one.
Right.
All right.
Anyway, but thank you guys so much for hopping on with us and hopping on the chat. Make sure you follow the show handle at Manly Broncos. You guys are an absolute blast. Stay tuned for another episode of the Manly Broncos podcast next Wednesday, same time, same bat channel.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute.